Ravens. While the Ravens have soared high since that team could not have gotten off to a better start.
You'll be on this journey with me.
Hey guys, now joined inside Nats Park.
Well, I'm interrupting your Masters Sunday to discuss some of the rumors that are swirling around out there about 49ers star wide receiver Brandon Aiyuk and the Ravens. So that and more is what I have coming up in this episode, which is brought to you by my friends at Preston Automotive Group. And with that, welcome into the channel. Glad you're here. I'm Bobby Trosset, and as always, this is where I bring you Baltimore sports and beyond. Let's begin here. Sarah and I covered this on Friday's Ravens Lunch Hour live stream, but Brandon, yes, I guess, began the contract games by unfollowing his current team, the San Francisco 49ers, on Instagram, something that is this generation's, I don't know, sometimes tool, a catalyst, perhaps gets something going, or really just gets the conversation and buzz going about the former first-round pick back in the 2020 draft. Of course, out of Arizona State, transferred there from Sierra College, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds, star, coming off a second-team All-Pro kind of caliber season for the 49ers, and absolutely would walk right into Baltimore as the bona fide top overall and number one wide receiver for their offensive unit. That said, there is a complicated piece to this puzzle, and we got to discuss what makes sense about this and what there's still obviously left to be figured out. So the reason why the rumors are flying, in part, is due to John Frischella's tweet here on X at Legend Sports 7. He tweeted out over the weekend, breaking, Aiyuk has officially requested a trade from the 49ers, according to confirmation from his San Francisco source. Benjamin Albright and 49ers Sports Talk have also done some preliminary reporting on this story. As of Sunday morning, April 14th, the Steelers have been the most aggressive in pursuing a trade for Aiyuk, with the Ravens also expressing interest. My source indicates there's a third mystery team that's coming on strong for Aiyuk, but they refuse to divulge any further information. Overall, wow, fireworks coming. Now, if you go to John's profile here, he doesn't work for anybody that's reputable. He's a blogger, which there's absolutely nothing wrong with being a blogger or being a YouTuber. But the point is, John isn't guaranteed to have a trusty source that can speak on this. And you don't want to know who thinks that's definitely the case? Is Brandon's agent, Ryan Williams, who quote tweeted John's tweet and said, "You need better sources." So if the contract games have begun, let the fireworks begin between these two going back and forth, which certainly erupted. It's got over 1.6 million views at the time of this taping and counting. So look, I got a lot of thoughts on this in terms of, first and foremost, the likelihood or lack thereof that the Ravens would even be in play here, much less even if the San Francisco 49ers would be willing and open to listening, right, from a contract standpoint. Brandon, as you see here, is going into his 5th NFL season. We'll go big screen for these numbers because it's been a really productive time so far in San Francisco. Coming off back-to-back 1,000-plus yard seasons, receiving wise, coming off a monster campaign of over 1,300 a season ago, to go along with 7 touchdowns, 75 receptions. He had 78 the year prior with over 1,000 yards receiving. So there's no question that San Francisco wants to keep him around if they can. Now, the 5th-year option, though, when you look at his contract, is not something that would make any sense right now for him to play on, given what he's worth, given what he's earned, in all honesty, from his play. Now, to make things, I guess, a little bit more compelling for folks in Baltimore, is I've seen some tweets out there that suggest Lamar and Brandon have followed one another recently on Instagram. Does that mean anything? I have no idea. My gut tells me it doesn't mean very much at all, to be honest with you. And that hardball is being played both by San Francisco by dragging this out, and also by Brandon's camp, who, hey, we're gonna stir up some controversy. We're gonna unfollow the team that we're currently a part of right now and that we're currently scheduled to play for in the 2024 season on a fifth year option. We're going to try and drum up some controversy. We're going to try and drum up some buzz about this to try and get something done, because clearly there has to be some sort of disconnect between the two sides right now. Now, based on reports, and Sarah and I discussed this on Friday's show as well, they have been actively engaged in contract talks. They're trying to get something done. But when you take a look at the reality that is San Francisco and the star power and the amount that they have on the books for that star power, you think about Deebo Samuel, you think about Christian McCaffrey, you think about George Kittle, and now Aiyuk going into his fifth year with the investing that has to be, that they have to allocate and invest and be ready, prepared to pay Brock Purdy top of the line in a couple years when he'll be up, right? But they still got time for that. But when you start to budget and when you start to take a look at allocation, there's just no way that you can keep all those players that I just mentioned, C-Mac, Deebo, Kittle, and Aiyuk, if you're paying your quarterback in a couple of years from now, top of the line, top of the market money. That's just not going to happen. We'll take a look at Brandon's contract specifically in just a second. But before we do, this episode is brought to you by my friends at Preston Automotive Group. And at Preston, Bobby Baltimore subscribers receive 2 exclusive offers that I would love for you to consider if you are in the market for a new or pre-owned vehicle. If that's the case, you get $500 towards either one of those things, a new or pre-owned vehicle at PrestonMotor.com. Or when you buy 4 tires at Preston, you'll receive 50% off your alignment. You've got over 2,000 vehicles to shop from. Home delivery is available. You'll be joining the Preston team along with Raven safety Kyle Hamilton, tight end Mark Andrews, myself. I drive that 2023 white Bronco Sport, and many more throughout Baltimore and beyond. Cars cost less with Preston. You can get started today by visiting PrestonMotor.com. I have that included in the show notes below. Or you can just simply scan the QR code that you have in the upper right-hand corner right now to get started today. A special thanks to Preston Automotive for not only putting me on the road in a slick Bronco Sport, but for supporting me not only throughout all the football season, but into the offseason as well. And we're coming up on the NFL draft, which I'll tell you about in just a second. Let's go big screen for Brandon's deal. Okay, set to hit unrestricted free agency in 2025. That fifth year would have him play the 2024 season at just over $14.1 million. So it's a bargain when you take a look at his production and you stack it up against the league and the market. It's a bargain, which is why the contract talks are underway, and which is why probably Brandon and his camp right now are using any tactic that they have at their disposal. Now, from a Ravens perspective, remember, not only would you have to give up a significant amount of assets, whether it be a first rounder this year, or perhaps you put a Rashad Bateman package together with an additional pick, not only are you giving that up, but then that's going to come along with the contract that he's seeking as well, because of the fact that he's entering his fifth year. So from a Ravens perspective, that's why I think it's so unlikely. Because you're not just giving up assets. You're making an investment. And given the cap restrictions that they have right now in the limited space, they'd be kicking the cash and the can down the road, which they have done, most recently with Odell Beckham Jr., most notably. I think they've done it a little bit prior to that with Nelson, or after that, I should say. So it's not unfamiliar territory, but it's very rare in the Eric DeCosta era that they do that. My advice and my prerogative is you pass off on this opportunity. We're not even sure if San Francisco is willing to listen in the first place, okay? And instead of making that kind of investment and giving up that kind of draft capital and potentially personnel in-house, you retool through the draft. You continue to bet on the development of Zay. You don't want to bet on the development of Rashad Bateman because that's too risky at this point, given what he's shown. You decline his fifth-year option. You tell him to prove it this year. You've got star tight ends in Mark Andrews and a budding one in Isaiah Likely. You've got a dominant backfield with Derrick Henry and, of course, Lamar Jackson and the dual threat opportunity that he presents any given play. Hopefully, Keaton Mitchell will be back in the first quarter of the season. Right? Nelson Aguilar is going to provide depth. And from there, you retool through the draft and you add that big body wide receiver because of how deep this upcoming draft class is in that category. You don't necessarily need somebody to come in and be a Brandon Aiyuk, be that bona fide number one, because you have a strength in numbers for sure, and that's what we saw a season ago. Here's more from David Lombardi here, who covers the San Francisco 49ers out west. If Brandon were to request a trade, history tells us that this coming week might be the time. Debo requested his trade on April 20th of 2022. The draft is a key inflection point, as we all saw a year ago with the Ravens happenings. David writes, hence the false reports trying to peddle guesses as sourced information, which is what that blogger did. But remember that both sides of this negotiation have the same stated goal, a contract extension for Aiyuk with the 49ers. The wide receiver's agent, Ryan Williams, who again shot down that report, I showed you that quote tweet earlier on, also has a long-standing relationship with John Lynch, general manager of the San Francisco 49ers. We can never say never to anything in the NFL, but we can follow logical thinking instead of guesswork to chart probable paths. And big money negotiations always take time. Why do I share this tweet? Because I think it's unlikely that Aiyuk ends elsewhere when it's all said and done. I think we're seeing tactics right now on Instagram. I can't speak to the whole trade request thing. His agents come out and denied it. That doesn't necessarily mean that's entirely true, right? We've seen in the past the trade request be a leverage point in these negotiations, especially in Baltimore. We saw that play out in plain sight a year ago. But to me, San Francisco can't let this guy walk. And if they don't pay him and he's disgruntled, there's going to be a holdout. And what follows is you not being as good as you should be week one, because Aiyuk is not going to be there. And he will hold out. The player in today's day and age, when you are that kind of needle mover the way Aiyuk is, and you run an offense the way Kyle Shanahan does, he has so much leverage. And so my guess is that Ayuk's going to get the contract that he's seeking, or at least in that ballpark from San Francisco. That doesn't mean that this entire piece out there in 49ers land is going to be there and available in the coming years, right? I think you ultimately, perhaps you end up trading Debo before it's time to pay Brock Purdy. But to me, this just seems like, yeah, there's some hardball, but there's a lot going on behind the scenes between the two parties right now. And I don't even think it's likely, I really don't, that the Ravens, one, would be willing to give up that kind of asset, that kind of draft capital for a guy who would also come with a major, major payday. That's tough to see. That's unrealistic. And here are the Debo contract figures. He's set to hit free agency, 2026. Unrestricted free agency 2026. Signed a 3-year, $71+ million deal, including over 24 as a signing bonus. So he's not going anywhere right now. But they got a lot of money hung up in him, no doubt. Deservingly so, because of how talented he is. But it's very interesting, this playing out right now. I know it's enticing. I know it. I know you guys want that number one, that true number one, but got to look at this as realistically as he possibly can. And I just don't see it being feasible. And really, more importantly, a good practice, organizationally, financially speaking, from a Ravens perspective. Coming up in under 2 weeks from right now, Sarah and I are going to be hosting our inaugural Marathon Draft Party live stream to celebrate opening night of the 2024 NFL Draft from a Ravens perspective. This will be at Soundstage in downtown Baltimore. It's the first time we've ever worked with a legitimate venue, and it's a big deal for us. Meaning if you can spare $40 and you're in the area and you want to have a good time to celebrate opening night and you want to support us, it would mean the world. If you go on Ticketmaster right now, you can find the link in the show notes below and join us for what we hope and what we honestly promise will be a fantastic evening. Special guests, giveaways, clean cuisine. We'll be fully catering it, buffet style, premium tailgate buffet. It will be streamed on YouTube and across all of our platforms if you can't join us in person. But it would mean the world. And Sarah and I are going to be together in person, something that doesn't happen very often. Sarah's flying in from Columbus for this event. So we're super excited about it. We hope you are as well. And we hope to see you on Thursday, April 25th at 7 o'clock at Soundstage in downtown Baltimore in the Inner Harbor, right across the street from Power Plant. So with that, I hope you'll join us tomorrow. That's the 15th for a Ravens Lunch Hour live stream. Special thank you to Preston Automotive Group for sponsoring my channel and this specific episode. If you enjoyed the content, please like this video and subscribe to the Bobby Baltimore YouTube channel if you haven't already done so. And shout out to my OG patrons, Big Fesh 927 and Eileen Nolan. You guys have been there from the jump, and I appreciate you for supporting the channel through Patreon this month. If you guys are interested in doing the same, visit patreon.com/Bobby Trosset to learn more about what I'm offering here inside the channel this month. So enjoy the rest of your Masters Sunday. I will talk to you on Monday.